Hey guys, JV here with another episode of Journey to Andromeda, and today we're discussing the new morality and dialogue systems that we'll see in the next Mass Effect. We'll talk about why the ParagonRenegade system is gone, what's replacing it, and why I believe from what we know so far that is okay. Before we jump in, just a reminder that I am uploading Andromeda content every other day ahead of release, and much more once the full game is out, so if that's something you're interested in, be sure and subscribe to my channel. Back in November, it was leaked along with a lot of other information that the ParagonRenegade system would not be in Mass Effect Andromeda, and for me, I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's a staple of the series. You don't really find that in any other game, and I was a bit worried about that prospect of not having a system that I was so used to in the original trilogy in the next chapter of Mass Effect. Fortunately, Mac Walters, who is the creative director of Andromeda, and I believe was a lead writer on the original trilogy as well, so he just got bumped up since Casey Hudson left BioWare. Anyways, Mac explained it in a way that made me feel a lot more comfortable with the change and willing to see, what they have in Andromeda that's going to replace it. So he explained that they felt like the ParagonRenegade system in the original trilogy would pigeonhole players into making choices because they decided they wanted to make that choice before even being presented with the situation. They decided, okay, this is going to be a Paragon playthrough, I'm going to play like this the entire time, or this is going to be a Renegade playthrough, I'm going to make these choices every single time I'm presented with them. Of course, veterans of the series know that the top right option is Paragon and the bottom right option is Renegade. That's how it's always been. But the problem with that is that players were not really making decisions based on the context of the situation. And I do want to stop here for a second and say there's nothing wrong with going all Paragon or all Renegade. That's a player choice. And as you guys know, I'm all for player choice. I don't think that's inherently wrong. But the issue was that nobody was making decisions, not nobody, but a lot of people were not making decisions based on the context of the situation. They didn't even care what was going on with the situation. They would just choose the top right option because they were going all Paragon. At least that's how I would do it. The previous system would also punish players for making particular choices based on this morality system. So within Paragon and Renegade, if you went a certain direction, then it would punish you for not going in the opposite direction. So overall, BioWare wants more nuance and subtlety with these, dialogue choices and morality choices across the board, more opportunities for players to express themselves. So once again, while this news was initially shocking to me, the way it's explained like this makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize the shortcomings of the ParagonRenegade system, and while it was fun to see Shepard do crazy mean things as Renegade or really awesome heroic things as Paragon, the system was not without its flaws. It definitely had its shortcomings. It was predictable after a certain amount of time, and so it does make sense if they want more nuance and subtlety, more opportunities for players to express themselves, to move towards a more dynamic system that is not just black and white morality as, the original trilogy painted it. Since BioWare got rid of ParagonRenegade, we have a new system to replace it that indirectly ties into morality, and we'll talk about that in a second. So the four options in the dialogue system and the dialogue wheel that we know about right now are heart, head, professional, and casual. So looking at this and hearing this, I have to assume that heart is speaking from the heart. It's appealing to emotion. That's what that option is. Head is probably appealing to logic. What's the most logical thing to say in the situation? Professional and casual are pretty straightforward. If you want to be more casual of the situation, you choose that option. More professional, if a situation calls for that, you choose that option. We really haven't seen any gameplay of this. I think we have one little snippet where we talk to Sloane Kelly at an outpost, who of course, as we know, is a former Nexus officer gone rogue, who's working with Raiders, something like that. We only have one little clip that shows this off. What's really interesting about this right here to me is that we have the head with a little swirly inside, and that would indicate this is the head option of the four, but also this is the same icon that BioWare used for the confusion dialogue wheel option in Inquisition, which is actually what one of the journalists at Game Informer compared this dialogue to, but with more clearly defined options. In Inquisition, there were a ton of icons. It was really kind of complex and you didn't know what was going on all the time, but apparently it's a lot more clear cut in this game. Like I said, I believe this is one of the only kind of dialogue wheel pieces of gameplay we've seen. There was a recent 17-minute gameplay demo from IGN, but they cut out all of the dialogue wheel options for story reasons, something like that. And so there really isn't much else to go on right now. This is really all we've seen of this system. We do, however, have a lot more information from, developers themselves or games media press that was able to get some hands-on time with the game. So apparently decisions don't have a right or wrong in this game. It's not not right as in being Paragon or wrong as in being Renegade, and there are pros and cons to each. And that's a little snippet that I read, but I feel like that's kind of how it's always been with Mass Effect. I think they've done a good job of not separating Paragon and Renegade by just right and wrong. It hasn't been black and white. There's always been obvious advantages to going Renegade in a certain situation over Paragon, and if you built up that meter, got the right skill points over the course of the game, then you could get those really high-level Paragon and Renegade choices. Those were really satisfying, and again, like I said, I don't feel like it's always been right or wrong. But in any case, I'm glad they're moving even further away from just black and white, right and wrong. We also know that dialogue options are displayed by the tone of what is said and not the full text of what Ryder is about to say. And if you come from Fallout, tread carefully, because this is how Mass Effect has always been. This is not a step in the wrong direction or anything like that. This is not a downgrade. Mass Effect has always given you a little snippet of what Shepard might say in the original trilogy, but he's going to say a lot more than what you just chose, because that's just how the game has always worked. So again, these options will display the tone of what you're going to say. It's not going to say absolutely everything that will come out of Ryder's mouth after you choose that option. Also from previews, we know that you can play as a completely cold and calculated character as Ryder from these dialogue decisions. You can be completely willing to risk lives and put everything on the line to get the mission done, which sounds very Saren. That was like the big kind of downside about Saren, is he was a Spectre that was willing to risk lives, especially human lives, to get the mission done at all costs. Apparently you can be that kind of cold-hearted bastard when you play through Andromeda with your Ryder, so keep that in mind. IGN noted in their preview that narrative stats are tracked, so apparently whichever choices you choose, that's going to be tracked in some kind of menu that you can follow on, and that's going to shape your Ryder's overall personality. However, I don't know if that's exactly true. At least from the preview that I read, I'm not sure if that influences the way Ryder acts at a previous time. And that seems to go against what BioWare actually told us before, that there wouldn't be consequences that would lock you up based on your decisions, you know, in the dialogue over the course of the game. So for example, if I choose the head option for most of the game and I use logic to appeal to whoever I'm talking to, is that going to make my Ryder more logical at the end game? I don't think so. I think that's kind of what they were implying, but maybe it was just a poor choice of wording, something like that. But yeah, that would conflict with the no consequences kind of line that BioWare has given us themselves. Still, I think it'd be really cool to kind of have a graphic or an interface that shows me what kind of decisions I've made over the course of my playthrough, so I can look back and see, you know, where did I go here, where did I go there, and then compare for future playthroughs if there is going to be enough replay value in terms of dialogue with this game. Since you're watching this video, you may be wondering if ParagonRenegade interrupts are out, and the answer is yes. We don't have ParagonRenegade anymore, and interrupts are out as well. So instead, however, we still have ways to interrupt conversations, and they're called narrative actions. Instead of the Paragon option on the left and Renegade on the right, it'll say something like shoot, or you'll have a strategic interrupt like disarm if you need to disarm somebody before they pull out their weapon and start shooting at your teammates. And they've also said that morality in these situations are ambiguous, so there's not going to be a right or wrong narrative action, and instead they're more impulsive in tone. So if you see an opportunity to do something, you can click whatever button is there for that action, and you can impulsively take that action. And I think from what I hear that concept is really cool. It makes sense. It's more impulsive. Every single ParagonRenegade interrupt in the original trilogy, you know, starting with 2, was impulsive in nature. You just do it. It's a split thing. You interrupt a conversation and you push a guy off a building, as you guys know, that classic moment. I think there's a lot more flexibility in the justification for why you would want to do a narrative action as well. Since we're not so, you know, black and white in this game, morally ambiguous means there's going to be a lot of different ways to kind of interrupt whatever's going on with a narrative action, act impulsively, and I'm really excited to see what situations we'll be able to use this in. Overall, like I said at the beginning of the video, initially I didn't like hearing that Paragon and Renegade was out, because that's just a staple of BioWare games in general. You've got a lot of morality in BioWare games, and Mass Effect has always been kind of the pinnacle of that, in my opinion. I've really enjoyed that system. And after hearing all of this, you know, developers explaining it, seeing some, you know, previews from other press media outlets, it seems like this is a well thought out change. This is not just a change in the dialogue morality system just for the sake of evolving the series. You know, just because we have another Mass Effect, it doesn't seem like that's what's going on here. And it also seems that you can still be an absolute dick, or you can still be a saint. You can be, you know, a Paragon, for example. You can still kind of go along those paths, but you have a lot more variety. It's just not going to be as defined. It's going to be a situational thing, and I think that's really awesome. I'm also looking forward to seeing how these decisions affect the replay value of the game. As you guys know before, you could have a Renegade playthrough, a Paragon playthrough, or kind of a mix of two, and that's pretty much it in terms of, dialogue affecting your playthrough. This time around, we have 4 different kind of core options. Does that mean there's kind of 4 different paths to take? Or, a 5th one that kind of incorporates all of them however you see fit? I'm really interested to see how that affects that. Alright guys, that is it for Mass Effect Andromeda's new dialogue and morality system. I hope you guys learned something new from this video. If you did, remember to hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe if you haven't already for more Andromeda content. I'd also like to know from you guys in the comment section below, do you like what you've heard about this new system? Do you wish that they stuck with Paragon Renegade? Really love to know your thoughts. Share those in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.